I almost missed him. That feels impossible to admit now, considering how completely he came to occupy my thoughts later, but at the time I was too wrapped up in my own quiet unraveling to notice much of anything. The rain had been falling all evening, not dramatic or cleansing, just persistent, thin needles tapping against the pavement, against windows, against my nerves. The city looked distorted through it, lights smeared into soft, bleeding colors, like a painting someone had dragged their fingers through. I hesitated before opening the car door. It was a small pause, barely a second, but long enough for doubt to whisper. Long enough for instinct to tug at me and say, "Wait." I ignored it, like I always did. The door shut behind me with a hollow thud. "Evening," I murmured, more out of habit than intention, and gave him the address. My voice sounded far away, like it didn't belong to me anymore. He didn't answer right away. I noticed that first, not his face, not his voice, but the silence. Most drivers replied instantly, polite and forgettable. This one didn't. The engine idled, the wipers dragged rhythmically across the windshield, and for a moment the car felt strangely still, like it was holding its breath. Then he nodded. Just once. "Got it," he said. His voice was low. Steadier than I expected. It carried something beneath it, restraint, maybe, or careful control. It brushed against me in a way I didn't quite understand. The car eased into traffic. I leaned my head against the cool glass of the window, watching the city slide past. I should have been thinking about where I was going, about the conversation I'd had earlier that night, the one that had left my chest tight and my hands trembling. I should have been thinking about the future, about plans and consequences and all the sensible things people were supposed to think about. Instead, I felt it. That subtle shift. That almost imperceptible awareness that someone was looking at me. I lifted my eyes. Our gazes met in the rearview mirror. It was brief, just a flicker, but it landed like a spark against dry skin. His eyes widened, not dramatically, but enough. Enough for me to notice. Enough for something deep inside me to tense, like a string pulled too tight. He looked away immediately, jaw tightening as he refocused on the road. I frowned, my reflection still hovering in the glass. That was strange, I thought. People glanced at passengers all the time. It didn't mean anything. Except. It didn't feel meaningless. There was something in his expression. Surprise, maybe. Or disbelief. As though he had seen something he hadn't been expecting, and wasn't sure how to react to it. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the roof. Street lights passed overhead, briefly illuminating his profile. I told myself not to stare. I failed almost instantly. He had a familiar kind of hands, long fingers, veins faintly visible, gripping the steering wheel with practiced ease. There was a small scar near his temple, pale against his skin, the kind that came from a childhood accident or a moment someone didn't like to talk about. Every so often, his thumb tapped lightly against the leather, a nervous habit he probably didn't even realize he had. My chest tightened for no reason I could name. The car slowed at a red light. The glow washed over his face, softening it, and for a moment I had the strangest sensation, like I'd seen him like this before. Not exactly like this, not in a car, not at night, but him. The shape of his mouth. The quiet intensity in his eyes. The light turned green. The moment passed. I exhaled, only then realizing I'd been holding my breath. "Long day?" he asked suddenly. The sound of his voice startled me. "Yes," I answered, too quickly. Then, after a pause, "Yeah. Very." He nodded again, eyes fixed ahead. I figured. Something about that made my pulse stutter. "You figured?" He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. "Most people don't ride this late unless they're tired of something." I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "That obvious?" "Sometimes," he said. "The way you sit. The way you don't look at your phone. That made me glance down, almost defensively. My phone was still in my bag, untouched since I'd left the apartment. I hadn't even realized it. "I guess you see a lot," I said. "I do," he replied. There was more he didn't say. I could feel it, humming beneath the words. The silence returned, thicker now, but not uncomfortable. Charged. I found myself watching his reflection again, tracing the line of his brow, the slight crease between his eyebrows that suggested concentration, or worry. Every few seconds, his eyes flicked up, just briefly, as though checking something. Or someone. At the next intersection, he took a turn that made me straighten. "That's not the usual way," I said before I could stop myself. His hands tightened on the wheel. "Roadwork." "Oh." I paused. "The app didn't mention." "It won't," he said gently. "Not yet." Something cold slid down my spine. I studied his face more carefully now, alert in a way I hadn't been before. He didn't look dangerous. If anything, he looked burdened. Like someone carrying a weight that had been there a long time. "I hope that's okay," he added, after a moment. "Yes," I said. "That's fine." And it was. Strangely, it was more than fine. The side streets were quieter, narrower. The city felt different here, older, almost. As though time moved more slowly in these pockets of shadow and rain. He navigated them effortlessly, not glancing at his phone or the dashboard once. "You know this area well," I said. A faint smile touched his mouth. It didn't reach his eyes. "I used to." "Used to." The words echoed in my mind, tugging at something fragile. I searched my memory without knowing what I was looking for. A face. A voice. A moment that refused to surface. The car slowed again. Another red light. This time, he turned his head. Fully. He looked at me, not in the mirror, not reflected or distorted, but directly. The space between us felt suddenly intimate, electric, as though the world outside the car had fallen away. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. I saw it then, the conflict in his eyes. The way his expression wavered between restraint and something dangerously close to longing. His lips parted, and I was certain he was about to say something important. Something that would explain the strange pull, the familiarity, the ache blooming quietly in my chest. My name hovered on the tip of his tongue. I didn't know how I knew that. I just did. The light changed. He looked away, hands tightening on the wheel as the car moved forward. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I shouldn't stare." My throat felt dry. "It's okay." But it wasn't. Because now I couldn't stop watching him. Not his reflection, not his hands. But the way his shoulders seemed perpetually tense, like he was bracing himself. The way his breathing changed when the car slowed. The way his silence felt intentional, loaded with things unsaid. "Have we met before?" I asked, the question slipping out before fear could stop it. The car jerked slightly, barely noticeable, but enough. "No," he said too quickly. I waited. "I don't think so," he added. I didn't believe him. The rain intensified, the world beyond the windows blurring further. My heart thudded against my ribs, not with fear exactly, but anticipation. The sense that I was standing on the edge of something, memory, truth, danger, love, I couldn't yet tell. He glanced at me one last time in the mirror. This time, he didn't look surprised. He looked resolved. And that was when I understood why I couldn't take my eyes off my driver. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't attraction, though that was there too, sharp and undeniable. It was the feeling that he knew me in ways no stranger should. That this ride was not just a coincidence, or a convenience, or a ways home. It was the beginning of something I had once lost. And was about to be forced to remember.